Good afternoon, colleagues. Please remain standing while my chaplain Jason leads us in prayer.
Good afternoon. Two announcements. To Father David Weekly, who was the nurse chaplain to Councillor Simon Picking, has passed away, and also former district and town councillor Peter Rowe. So we're going to remember those guys in prayer and families. Let's pray. Father God, we want to say thank you for the food that we have, for the place where we rest, where we sleep, for the clothes on our back. We say thank you for that provision. You give us what we need, not necessarily what we want. You God of the heavens and the earth, and you cross all political, social and ethnic boundaries. God, you knew us in our mother's womb. You saw us grow. You have seen everything that we've done and the things that perhaps we should have done. You've seen what we could have done. We certainly cannot change the past, but we know that what is right and what is just can be done in this journey this afternoon. Father God, we ask that that be so. At the end of our time here on earth, we will all answer for what we have or haven't done when we meet face to face. And at this time, we just remember our colleagues, our friends that have died, passed on. Remember Father David Wheatley. Thank you for his time here, Father God. Thank you for the work that he did, Father God. Thank you. Father, we say thank you for Peter Rowe and all the things that he was involved with. Father God, at this time, we just ask that you will be all that his family and friends need at this time. You will be their comforter. Father God, that they would know your loving arms surrounding them and they would feel your peace. Father God, we pray for clarity of mind, for wisdom and for integrity to be brought forth into this place today. We pray that your name will be held in high honour over all things, over this city. We pray your hand will be on our governing body within this city, everyone represented within this chamber. We pray for your hand of protection, for your grace and your favour over us all and over this city of ours. Father God, this afternoon, we pray that your name indeed will be held in high honour, that your name will be glorified in all things. Father God, we say thank you. Thank you. You don't deserve the things that you give to us, but you love us. You love us unconditionally. And for that we say thank you. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Item 2 on the agenda is to receive council to receive disclosure by members of interest in matters under consideration. Will members declaring an interest please identify themselves with a particular interest clearly and completely usual yellow form at the end of the meeting. I can confirm that the Chief Executive has granted the dispensation to all councillors who have an interest in the minority pension motion. This enables all councillors to debate and vote on the motion. For ease, the following councillors have indicated they have an interest in this item. I shall read them out here. That's Councillor Wakefield, Councillor Byford, Councillor Evanstall, Councillor Rose, Councillor Isherwood, Margaret Graham, Councillor Rowley, Councillor Kitchen, Councillor Tennant, Councillor Collins, Councillor States, Councillor Dagger, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Ellis, Councillor Malkin, Councillor Tully and Councillor Morrington. Thank you. Are there additional disclosure of pecuniary interest to be declared? Councillor.
Madam Mayor, can you add my name to that list as well?
We can indeed. Anybody else have anything to declare at this meeting? Thank you. Agenda item 3 is to receive and confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 21st of July 2021. Are these minutes moved?
Move the minutes, Madam Mayor.
Are the minutes seconded?
Second.
Agenda item 4 is to receive apologies for absence. Apologies have been received in advance of the meeting from Councillors Blizzard, Carrington, Cummins, Ferguson, Massey, Medford, Picking, Angela Taylor and Williams. Are there any further apologies? Councillor Stanton. Councillor Ahmed. Any further apologies? That is duly noted. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is to deal with such announcements as I might decide to lay before council. Can I just say it's lovely to see you all back in the chamber and it's nice to be back in our own ground. I'm thrilled to have been able to launch my charity fundraising event at Wakefield in the Wellbeing Centre on Saturday. It was a lovely event with over 30 people abseiling down the cathedral. My personal thanks to those council colleagues that volunteered and were pushed to abseil down the cathedral. You all did very well and we raised over £3,000 for those two good causes. Earlier this month I was delighted to visit the Forget Me Not charity Children's Hospice in Huddersfield, who were celebrating their 10th anniversary. We got to meet the hospice patron, Princess Beatrice, and it was lovely to hear that she's just had a new baby. So what a wonderful day we all had. To contribute to the vital work of the hospice, I'm pleased to be able to invite you all back to the parlour for the next month's meeting on the 27th of October, where we're going to be having some buns and cakes and raising some money for the Children's Hospice. So if you can all join in the parlour after next month's meeting, that would be wonderful. Please do continue to celebrate the wonderful work being undertaken in the district by supporting the Nurses Thanks Awards, sending all nominations into the office. I was humbled to meet a lot of dedicated individuals from across the district over the past few weeks and learn about the vital contributions they make into our area. So I'd welcome you all to be putting nominations forward from people in your wards. That would be lovely. Finally, the Mayor's Parade service will be taking part on the Saturday the 9th of October. If you are attending, please do let the office know so we can make sure you've got enough refreshments for everybody. I am sure members are pleased to be finally able to get back in the council chamber. However, because we need to remain cautious and follow guidance, the meeting will adjourn around about 3:30, depending on where we are in the agenda, to allow the doors to be open to ventilate the chamber. There will be drinks outside for fire safety and toilet break. So thank you, colleagues. That concludes my announcements. Oh, yeah, also, just to add to that, Councillors Collins, Dagger and Wakefield may need to leave the meeting early before it's finished. We are very time. As no deputations have been received for today's meeting, we will now move to agenda item 7, which is the leaders' report. Just to remind you all that the leaders' report will answer any questions from members on the matters raised in their report. A maximum of 30 minutes will be allowed for this. Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I shan't be taking 30 minutes, bearing in mind that we have to forget the chamber. Can I say how great it is that we're actually all back in here? It's really good to see us all. It hasn't been a success in the market hall, but at least we had to do that. But I think it's really good that we're all here together now. And I'd like to congratulate Nick on her appointment as leader of the Conservative group. And I hope that we can all work well together in the chamber. You'll have seen outside the exhibition for the Forgotten Women of Wakefield, and Councillor Barford and myself went to the opening of that a fortnight ago, and it was really something special to learn about the women and the history of what they've done in Wakefield many years ago. So I hope you all have a look at that before you leave. The abseiling of the cathedral was absolutely amazing, and Jill, Cass and Margaret were truly amazing. I really take note of you. I know you were on those at the time, but you all came down like troopers. You were absolutely brilliant. Just a few other things to say. I hosted an evening for the Wakefield women for their pensions the other Monday, and a number of us attended, and we lit the town hall at purple for that. And we had quite an event. I think we took Wood Street over, but it was really something worthwhile, and we showed our support to the Wakefield women. And we attended a BMA conference, staff conference on Friday, and I was pleased that we can start to do that, and that we move that forward. And about 60 people from the staff came, but hopefully more people will come in the future. But Andrew and I attended, and it was a really are now working with us. Tracy Braben, the West Yorkshire Mayor, has asked if she can come to a future council meeting, so I hope we can agree. The City of Culture bid, we're waiting with bated breath now to see if we are shortlisted. Hopefully we are, but we'll have to see about that. Excuse me. But if we're not, we will have to do something to celebrate, because we've had so many people wanting, schools, parents, all wanting to be involved in culture, competitions for children in schools, writing competitions, painting competitions. So we do intend to have our own year of culture, if we're not successful. The other thing which will be of interest to elected members, I was contacted yesterday by the Boundary Commission, and they will be coming to Wakefield next November, not this year, but the year after, and they're going to do a review of our district, which will mean that in 2024 there will be all-out elections. There'll be swings and roundabouts on that, I'm sure. On the Afghan families, we have taken a number of Afghan families into our district now, and the Mayor and myself are having an event to welcome them into our district. I'm sure everybody will support that. The memorial to COVID that we're having, I know we're all doing small ones in our own areas, but we're going to have one in the centre of Wakefield, and there will be an event at the end of October, which everyone will be invited to. And I think that's all from me. Thank you, Ms. Madden.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Any questions for Councillor Jeffrey's report? Councillor Stansby.
Just to echo your sentiments, it's great to be back in the chamber, and let's hope that we can actually stay here and that nothing interrupts it, because it's much better being able to see you and hear as well for those of us who have hearing issues. That the market hall wasn't the best place. Just a quick question on the visit from Tracy Braden. Will we be able to ask questions of her? Will she be speaking? Do we have any idea what kind of format it will be when she arrives, or is she just here to observe the meeting? And also, can I just say how pleased I am that Wakefield's welcoming the Afghan families? And would you be able to confirm that we're not just putting them up in hotels, and that there are other facilities? And I have heard that we're sort of being almost a sorting office where we're directing them to other areas of West Yorkshire. So if that's the case and this is their first impression of West Yorkshire, then yeah, we do need to welcome them and show them off at our best, I think. And just to say that, the Earth Festival was amazing and we had really good feedback on it. Thank you.
On the Tracy Braden visit, we haven't got any details yet, but I would expect that if she might want to make some sort of statement, set out her plans, but we all need to ask her questions of how she intends to do the next 3 years. So I'll let you know once I know what's happening on that. With the Afghan families, we have settled 5 families in their own homes. And we'll be dealing with the education of children, lessons for some of the wives can't speak English. I think some of them have been interpreters, but I think the wives perhaps can't speak, so we're arranging for that to happen. And you will be invited to the event to welcome them also. And I think that's all that we do. Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Jeffrey? Councillor Gordon.
I don't think it's too much of a surprise. I was also going to ask about Tracy Braden's visit here, given my vociferous sort of criticisms surrounding the formation of West Yorkshire Combined Authority and Morality under her, given that residents in our area said that they were strongly opposed more than all other options on that consultation when the Labour Council decided to drag us into those arrangements. Just following on from what Councillor Stansby said, can you make sure that you do involve councillors in what those arrangements are up front for the format of that meeting, and can you confirm that will aside so that we can properly hold Tracy as the mayor to account.
Yeah, I think it's important that all of us are involved in what she wants to say. I mean, it's up to yourselves, and we will inform you of what she's prepared to do. But I think we do need to hold her to account. It wasn't an elected mayor, wasn't something that I particularly wanted, and I did campaign against it with many members of the group. However, we were persuaded because of the funding. So I intend to hold her to account when she comes, and I expect all of you to do the same.
Councillor Akbar.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Leader, did I hear you correctly that you said we've only welcomed 5 Afghanistan families, and if so, do we have intentions to welcome more families?
Yeah, I did actually forget to say, Nick, that there are families in hotels at the moment being processed, but we are hoping that we will be able to offer accommodation working with WGH. So at the moment, we've only got 5 settled, but we are expecting to take more, and the government are helping us with the funding.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Stansby.
It was just a point. Tom, I don't know if there's an issue with your microphone, but it sounded kind of quite gallopy and I'm struggling to understand what you're saying. Given that you feature quite prominently in today's meeting, you might want to change chairs or something.
Thank you, If there's no further questions to Councillor Jeffrey, we move on to agenda item 8, which is to receive written cabinet members' report of the powers of the council. Cabinet members have up to 5 minutes to present their report and a further 15 minutes allocated to enable each cabinet member to respond to any questions or brief comments that are raised within their report. First report is from Councillor Hemingway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In presenting my report, just a few things to add. I had the pleasure last night attending the Wakefield Parish Council to speak about the Great Green Week. Our parish councils around the district are starting to really take the green climate seriously, and it's a very well attended event, and hopefully more parish councils will follow. Crofton and Ackworth, a number of examples where this sort of action is taking place. The other thing I wanted to highlight is in my report, on pages 14 and 15, I've got the update from the council's plan renewing regarding waste. They are once again offering free soil improvement to residents of the district. So residents are able to take up to 5 bags of soil improver. All they have to do is attend a household waste recycling centre with proof of their ID, and they can collect that soil improver. So it might be you want to flag that up to your residents or community groups that can get access to that. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Hemingway. Are there any questions on Councillor Hemingway's report? No, we shall move on to the next portfolio of children and young people. Councillor Isherwood, would you please introduce your report to council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll present the report to council. I'd like to congratulate Nick on the new role, and I'd like to ask if we perhaps meet up to discuss how we can work together to benefit children's services. I never class children's services as a political thing, and I think we need to all work together to make sure we do the best for our children and families. As you see from the send I put in, there was an awful lot of challenges over the past 18 months for our people out there, and I'd like to thank all the staff involved in the work that's been done with our children and people and their families over that time. I'm also going to be the drum for the National World Breastfeeding Week. I'm a big supporter of breastfeeding, and I think I've had a chat with Councillor Cummins, and we're going to do a lot of work now to make sure that Wakefield is a breastfeeding friendly place to be. And finally, congratulations to the young people at Benson Lane for putting on the tea party for the Yorkshire Fair. With that, I'm going to report.
Thank you, Councillor Isherwood. Are there any questions on Councillor Isherwood's report? Councillor Akbar.
Councillor Isherwood, would you be kind enough to confirm with regards to the creative short breaks, how many families are taking advantage of that?
I'm
encouragement. Moving on to the next, which is the portfolio of community poverty and health. Give me access to Council Cummings, Council Deputy, yes, this report, is that correct?
Yes. Yes, Madam Mayor, I move the report. Maureen is quite poorly today with COVID, so she can't be here. She's probably watching us on live streaming, so I'm going to get this right. But anyway, I think what she'd say is, I'm standing up, so I'll say it for her. But I'll move the report, and if any questions, we'll take those and we'll get back to you with the answers, because obviously I can't deal with all these. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Dowden.
Yeah, I obviously didn't know in that Councillor wouldn't be here, so I'm more than like saying someone to get back with it. It was just a couple of things in the report, the benefits campaign and also the HI campaign. Whilst the great news report, I just wondered in what way do we, the council officers, monitor the results of that so we know they are effective and that will get us a good outcome. So if we get some more information on how those are monitored, that's great.
Thank you, Councillor Dowden. I'm sure they'll get it reminded. Councillor Santley.
I saw Maureen actually earlier today, which was quite concerning. She was going into the pharmacy in Renthorpe. So I did wonder at the time if she was poorly, so clearly she is, wishing her a speedy recovery. Regarding the ambassadors, the community ambassadors, now I've phoned communities a couple of times and been told that they've been out and about, knocking on people's doors, encouraging people to take COVID tests and stuff. And I found it quite difficult to get, normal ward work done because they've been spending 2 days out of 5 knocking on people's doors. So my question is, has that now finished? Is everyone back to normal? Are they 5 days a week working in communities? And then I do have another question regarding the Project Adder. Now, I'm aware Turning Point only deals with one diagnosis, and wondering if that has changed recently, because if it hasn't, it really does need to change. At the moment, people who have a mental health diagnosis and an addiction issue, they tend to go hand in hand, but they've been turned away from Turning Point, who say, no, we will only deal with one diagnosis at a time. So I think that probably needs to change if it hasn't already.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Santley. I'm sure Councillor Cummings will send you a detailed reply to that when she's watching online at this moment in time. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to the portfolio of children's sport. Councillor Graham, would you like to introduce your reports, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I will highlight 2 things. First of all, there's the 50 things to do before you 5 initiative. I think as elected members, we play a big part in getting messages out there to the public, and Wakefield Expressor and Facebook does a fantastic job as well. But I want to encourage all members. This is such an important initiative. It's great for young people. It's really easy to access. Please encourage sharing through all your community groups, through your own pages, etc. As many people as possible to take part on this. And secondly, is to mention the Festival of the Earth, which I know Councillor Stanley praised before, and I think very rightly so. It's a massive thank you to all the staff within the council who have worked behind the scenes to put this festival together. It's a massive thank you to every member in this room who's helped to publicise it, to every other organisation across the district who have been involved in it, and to all the volunteers and the performance and the staff. It was absolutely fantastic, the launch that we had. We've had over 35,000 visits to Gaia, which is in the cathedral, and to the fireworks exhibition in the WX building. We've had thousands of people attending workshops that we've given grants for. We've had 1,000 eco-warrior packs distributed to people across the communities. There's just been an absolutely huge amount of stuff going on, both in the city centre and across every single part of our district. And I've seriously not heard a negative word said about it. It's been such a success. So thank you to everyone who has sent those thank you emails and that feedback. I just want to also highlight
and Thorns Park has cut its hours down. So it closes at 12:30 on Saturday, doesn't open until 12 noon on Monday. Can we have something similar, please? I mean, I'm not expecting the full works. I mean, contract's £23 million. It isn't anything. If we could get anything anywhere near what we've got in contract in Thorns Park or even Corbury or Ossett, that would be fantastic. Because there just isn't any kind of facility on the western side. And again, well done on the Festival of Earth. It would really was good. Councillor Gray.
Thanks, Councillor Stanley. I hope I'm going about the fact that we've been cut, money's been cut for the last 10 years in austerity. I think I've mentioned that a lot, and I sort of don't want to store little points here. What I will say is that I do want every single resident in every part of this district to have access to very decent facilities, such as Aspire, which I think we can all say is absolutely world class. In an ideal world, I would want to come in every corner of the district. Obviously, for obvious reasons, which I'm not going to debate here in a second, we can't have that. But I have tasked officers. I do want to see a plan. I want to know where we're going with this district. I want to know what we're building next. I want to know what's in the future. I want to know which of our buildings are going to need this refurbishment or this improvement over the next 5-10 years. So I have tasked officers. I'm asking them to put something together, a plan of work, and there'll be many conversations in the future and chances for us members to feed into what we need and where we need it. So I understand. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Norton.
Just in the report, you obviously mentioned the work which was done to make sure that 50% of the spaces were offered to children with preschool meals. I just wondered how that worked, in fact, how we identify those people, and how does that work in terms of obviously people who are from backgrounds where there might be preschool meals. It's going to be hard for them to travel and access facilities, so what support the council put in place to make sure it's people from across the lifetimes, not just people who are in walking distance of Aspire. And the second sort of point on that same tangent is in terms of making sure that those people again are the ones who are probably unlikely to be able to come from backgrounds who might be able to afford to pay for swimming lessons, where as if we're providing whether it's part of this is for active kids, and that's obviously a good thing. We want to do more of that. It was only earlier today that I actually found myself agreeing with two Labour MPs. I don't know what it was. We had West Streeting and Alison McGovern both talking about access to swimming facilities for children, and I find it just a little bit off, shall we say, the fact that Labour has an ambition, 10 by 10, for kids to learn to be able to swim by 8 by 10, but that means counter to what's happening at this council, where we've got backlog to swimming lessons and children can't get into use facilities. It talks as well, the MPs in West Street, talks about the fact that he's proud that the council in Redbridge Council has actually seen and been able to increase the number of swimming pools in their borough and expanded access, and that is something that Labour Council there is championing. I wonder why we can't seem to do the same, given that we face the same cuts as other local authorities, particularly ones in London and other areas which have seen them.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Well, first of all, it was a study released today with very down from Sport England saying that 2,000 pools are set to be shut by the year 2030. There's a massive problem. There's really old pools from the 60s and 70s that need that investment, that are getting it. That's a national problem, not just Wakefield, it's everywhere. 40% of swimming pools are looking to be shut. It's not a coincidence, and there's no money. How on earth do people expect us to build and to run these swimming pools if we don't have the money to do so? If government were to give back some of the 180 million that they've taken from us, we would be able to provide these facilities. I think in terms of what we're doing with pools, we're actually bucking the trend here. We're not just knocking down pools, we're building new ones. We've got Aspire, which has got 2 pools in there, absolutely state of the art. We're doing as best we can without our hands tied. In terms of the Aspire launch active kids, I think it's a really good point that you're making. How are we selecting these children, and how are we providing transport? I can tell you that in terms of this was sort of a trial. There's a small pot of money from a small fund from the government, and we used it to identify 60 kids using market children's. 30 of those were fully funded, so they didn't have to pay. And I think now for us, it's sort of the learning from this. The feedback from that 5 weeks, I think it was, 5 weeks Monday to Friday, was absolutely fantastic. The parents absolutely loved it. The programme was amazing. The children was out to be able to learn something. I think for us now is learning from that when we evaluate this year. Let's look at now how are those 30 children selected, because it was advertised on Facebook, was advertised to the council. Can we increase capacity? Can we offer it to more people? And then, is there a barrier to get into there? I don't believe that, or I've asked the question, the exact same question, I don't think there's any barriers in this instance, but we need to make sure of it, and if there is, what funding we can come up with to get those children from towns such as Nottingham or Castleford to Aspire.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Homewood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Graham, you keep raising this issue of cuts and lack of money, but we all know that Mr. Byrne left us a nice note saying there was no money left, and that's why we had to cut public spending as we did. But it didn't stop us spending 23 million quid in pocket flat, did it? Whereas in Ossett, where we've promised swimming pools, no swimming pools, even years later. So, you know, you can do it somewhere if you want to.
You're going back to your point, I would absolutely love to have a swimming pool in every town in this district. It's just not possible. And we can bang on as much about these imaginary notes that are found in people's offices. The data is there. Your government has absolutely stripped local councils across this country of funding. You have decimated budgets. And it's in there in black and white. You can argue as many things you want to, as you always do. It's there in black and white. And if you can't admit to that, that's no problem.
Councillor Ishmael.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. It's great to hear all these, millions of pounds, we want swimming pools here, we want swimming pools there, and hundreds of thousands of people visiting Wakefield, Wakefield, and West Palace. Could I just say thank you, Michael, for your assistance, because in Featherstone, all over there's a little football team set up, completely by volunteers, and I'm trying to bring it down to a level there that you can understand, I suppose. And the reception is, and year one, well, 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids, and I went to take me blue jersey down to use the golf course. And I'd just like to say thank you, Michael, for assisting in getting some equipment for them to play. It's absolutely joyful to see them, to see our kids' songs. There's more that we can do as a local authority that affects local people, kids that are out around.
It's not in the report, can we just have that as a point of order?
And I feel like we're
Just rolling up now. Just going to close this debate. So just one moment.
I'm going to have to speak that grumbling.
Wrap it, Councillor.
Thank you for supporting the smaller items, the smaller issues in the district, as well as dialogue.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. That's the time of our report. We're going to move on to Councillor Biden's report, which is the portfolio of the regeneration of economic growth and property.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity to thank officers who have been working extremely hard over the last few months, supporting businesses and residents to make sure that we exit the current pandemic, hopefully exit the current pandemic, and to ensure that our work continues as we enter perhaps some difficult and turbulent times of the economy. But can I draw to your attention the following report? The great work that's been done by our adult education service, incorporating Step Up and the rest of our employment force. This work has been sterling in its ambition. Some details are shown in the report, and these are having real positive impact on our residents. Can I also bring to your attention the work often done behind the scenes by strategic housing, making small improvements to properties across the district, which make a huge and have a huge impact on residents' day-to-day life. We can also bring to your attention the amount of positive news around regeneration throughout the report, around all our towns and cities, with more to come in Ossett, in Wakefield, in Featherstone and in Normanton. And finally, I would like to bring to your attention the work being carried out by our Money Smart mortgage breathing space and debt management colleagues, because this is having a real impact on individuals, and there are many examples given in the report from pages 58. And with that, Madam Mayor, I'd like to remain the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Can I just remind councillors if there's any comments, brief comments or questions on Councillor Barker's reports. Councillor Stansby.
Sorry.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say, well done on the longest report. that was quite a report, took some reading. I just wanted a bit of clarification on the extended reality project across the board in town. Are you saying that up to 500 jobs to be created as a result of that project? Or is that totally... Sorry, I have got other questions. Is that... Do you want to ask them all at once?
Let's ask them all at once.
Okay, so that was the first question. If it isn't, bearing in mind that we're going for net zero by 2030, would it not be better to have focus on maybe things that don't rely on electricity and maybe, old-fashioned things like books and playground games and, encouraging kids to play outside rather than on the screen, which, I don't know about anybody else in this room, but I sure have a difficulty trying to get my teenager off screen. The other thing is, VHS, what's happening? We need to know, something needs to be done with it. It's great that we've got a new frontage, but, it's been empty for goodness knows how long. So I'd be interested to know if we've got any plans for that. And also Chantry House. What's Passive House? Is that how you spell it? I don't know how to pronounce it. Passive House? Chantry House? A unit. My concern is I really don't want it to turn into some kind of mini family magnet situation. We don't want to go with something because it's got a name that nobody can pronounce and sounds wonderful and all the rest of it, and then we fall flat on our faces. So, have we got any safeguarding in place? How much is it going to cost? How many people is it going to house? That sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stansby, and I welcome those comments. In relation to the thing about the 500 jobs, I think that's a typo, to be fair. I will double clarify that, and within the next couple of days I'll come back to you. In relation to VHS, you're quite right, we need to do something with it. We have owned it now for a few months. The building is not supposed to be riddled with asbestos from top to bottom. It is part of our plans. The town's fund levelling up to come into there, and as soon as we have confirmation that the town's fund has levelling up from the confirm, we'll be able to come out and ensure that what's going on there. We've got some new frontages on there. It's a halfway house, but we recognise that needs to be quickly. The site of Chantry House, which is going to be our site for some new which is going to be our site for some new social housing down there, we will ensure that there will be safeguards put in there for the development that's going down there, and it will not have issues in the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regard to the redevelopment of Wakefield City Centre, the town sponsors a government initiative which Wakefield was granted 24.9 million, which is only 100 grand from top slot. And does Councillor Byford and the Labour Control Council acknowledge that the major redevelopment of key parts of Wakefield City Centre would not be going ahead without this very generous Conservative government initiative?
I think just after the town's fund was announced, I was interviewed on North a few months ago, and I answered that question I thought quite succinctly. They've taken off us a huge chunk of money as well. You've taken a huge chunk of money off us with one hand and given us some more chunk of money back with the other hand. We do welcome the money. As I think the lady said on numerous occasions, we will always take the money and we will always put it to good use in Wakefield. So thank you for raising that point.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
same time, can I just draw attention to Kirk and the former ABC cinema. It's well over 20 years since elected members around the board, and previously in each ward, have been wanting something done in terms of the cinema down there. Again, this has been vandalised. It has got to be inside the building, serious structural damage. Over the years, it has cost this authority money in having to have people down there to rectify and actually try and make safe the building for the area. Can I say how much I welcome this good news and look forward to the future again of what is going to be in the place. And in overall terms of Wakefield City Centre, the work that's going on and the improvements around have to be welcomed by everybody. And when we've had such events that Graham and Michael has actually mentioned earlier, we do want these buildings to grow back into good use so that we're not seeing buildings of the likes of these left empty and to be vandalised. So thank you very much and pass it on to the staff, Darren.
Thank you. Councillor Farman.
Thank you, Madam. First of all, I'd say it's fantastic all this regeneration going on throughout the district. I just wondered if we can actually finish some of the plans that we passed at Cabinet years ago, i.e. our town hall. We can actually start it and might finish it. Thank you.
I think that's a very valid point, Nick.
Councillor Shaw.
I just want to congratulate you on this excellent report that you see the board. Despite the past 10 to 13 years and nearly £180 million that the Conservative government have taken off this area, which I find a disgrace, to look at a report like this, where you're looking at regeneration, you're looking at developing areas, all across, not just Wakefield, the towns, Nottingham, Castleton, a lot of different areas are benefiting from your work and the work of your officers, and I want to congratulate you on what you've done. Just think what would have happened if the Conservative government hadn't taken 180 million off us. We'd have been singing, so well done.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Shaw, and I will ensure that officers that made the work are appreciated.
Councillor Raphael.
If the Conservative government did take that way, we still be wasting on the schools.
Councillor Raphael, I have a question to Councillor Lightfoot.
No, it's a response.
Well, Councillor Raphael, that's not appropriate. It's a question or a brief comment to the portfolio holder. Councillor Gordon, have you got a question?
It was just on the section of the report which talks about the limestone walls project in Nottingham. I thank the time and the effort of council officers who, like, it's weeks, if not months of their lives, having their head against not a brick wall, but a limestone wall. I think the point that I've just made, I don't feel that the report accurately necessarily reflects, and I appreciate it because you probably not have to deal with stuff on the ground, officers deal with that. I do just think that whilst the work's now underway, I think that actually the fact that we've ended up in a situation where a developer was granted different sort of planning permission that they could effectively ignore limestone walls, which are part of the local heritage that residents in Nottingham are very fond of, and could effectively put up a wooden or some other sort of fencing in place. What actually happened is the developers effectively said, if you don't give us the money to do the work, then we'll knock it down and put something on the site. So I do just think that actually this, it's not a criticism per se, it's obviously the fact that developers are effectively, trying to write on the council what's happening, and I do just think the report doesn't really acknowledge that this is something that has taken negotiation with them, and also I think one of the things I'm more than happy to say is there's been probably endless months of former council Graham Stokes' life, as well as mine, spent on trying to do this. So I think just actually acknowledging everything as well for his work that he did on this is something that's worth noting moving forward.
Councillor Lightfoot.
Just thank you for those positive comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lightfoot. We'll move on to Councillor Morley. Portfolio Bernardo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'd like to formally move my report. It includes some Madam Mayor, additions to the whole report though. Emails that have come out last week regarding changes to buses around the Wakefield district.
and West Yorkshire. I have commented already on the very short notice of them. I do believe Marina will know that you're having trouble with recruiting bus drivers, and a shortage of bus drivers. I made no criticism of bus drivers, Madam Mayor. They're outstanding in the pandemic and the first class service. I do think it's caused major confusion to local residents. The fact that people are not sure what buses to catch now, and splitting bus journeys in two has not helped as well, Madam Mayor. So we will be having a meeting where we will try to get bus services back on track as soon as possible. I do know local members will be contacting me with different scenarios in their wards. So with that, Madam Mayor, I can take any questions on my reports.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Any questions, Councillor Morley? Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does Councillor Morley acknowledge that the reason HGV drivers park in non-designated parking areas is simply due to a lack of HGV parking provision in the Wakefield Metropolitan District area, and where such provision did exist, like Quebec Street, we sold it off for development. And the consequence could well be the intolerable situation where truck drivers start rocking up and parking on roadsides and in people's private land. Does his department have any plans to replace lost HGV parking facilities, or does he agree with his colleague Councillor Tully that highways officers ain't got a clue?
Councillor Morley.
Take that, please.
Any matter?
Madam Mayor, we're surrounded by HGV parking places. We have services all the way around this district where lorry drivers can park up. That's a fact. There's places on the side of motorways, there's places in Castleford, there's places in Ferry Bridge, there's places down Junction 30, 38, there's services all the way around this district people to park with, Madam Mayor. So there is ample HGV parking around here. So if you're not in the middle of the line, that's a fact that there is. So Madam Mayor, to answer this question, yes, there is ample parking.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Councillor James.
Thank you, Madam. My question was the same as Tony Holman. I'm a district councillor in Pontefract, and I know that Friarwood were traditionally a heavy goods vehicle parking area. Orderly parking in Friarwood were adding to the Pontefract economy because drivers were seeking meals within the town, and I find I spent 40 years as an HGV driver, and you need to plan your routes. I think that Wakefield, as a strategic town on major motorway networks, needs to be very supportive of the transport industry, because we need to know that people can depend on Wakefield when they're involved in this sort of work.
Thank you, Councillor Morley.
Yes, we are very supportive of the transport industry. We are strategic, as Councillor Hayes said. Professional lorry drivers plan their journeys and when they will take their best stops. There's ample provision of that around the Wakefield district.
Councillor Pat.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to thank Matthew and officers for the high barriers that have been in place in the car park. And that's on behalf of the residents who've had some really good feedback, because I think this is now being resulted in
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I do know some of the issues because to the local residents that you represent. So yes, we will follow this.
Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Matthew, I actually was asked by a previous County Council to answer a question about the 5G council election recently from the Shrewsbury School. So despite the opposition...
Councillor Hanley, that's not actually in the report. It needs to be a question on the green comments and things that are in the reports. So if you want to ask him that privately, you can send him an email.
Okay, that's...
Are there any further questions on Councillor Morley's report? If not, we'll move on to Councillor Collins' report. Councillor Collins is the Cabinet Member for Portfolio for Resources, Member for Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got nothing to add to what is in the report, just to highlight that in conjunction with public health colleagues, the Council is rolling out once again its flu vaccination programme to members of staff aged between 18 and 64, and just to use this as an opportunity to encourage young people. I think we know now more than ever how important it is to get our vaccinations. So with that, I move it.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Are there any questions, Councillor Collins? Councillor Garland?
It was just in there, it talks about flexible working policy and how that's controlled by councils and staff. It's been done with mutual service directors and so on. Under the flexible working policy for employees and council in the report.
I'm trying to it.
Sorry, can you not, is that any better? Yeah, in the report it talks about flexible working policy update. That's been ongoing and has been sort of started before in consultation with the IGA board. I was just wondering, in terms of with council officers, if there is going to be moved to flexible work, how that will interact with like how officers, the impact that might be on people like themselves trying to get in touch with them. I was wondering what thoughts gone into consideration about how councillors interact with council officers if some people working hours a bit.
Did you want to come back?
Yeah, there is still sort of consultation going on in terms of that, and what will come out of that is the needs of the service. So we won't have a reduced service, and that will feed into the consultation. From this pandemic, we've become much more flexible and it will work for some. There will be a report that we all updated on shortly, but those sort of conversations are happening.
Any further questions or comments on Councillor Collins' report? Thank you, Councillor Collins. We're going to move on now to agenda item 9. And this is to deal with any questions made by members. Councillor Rogers has given me a kind notice to ask 4 questions. Full details of which are set out in the council agenda. We will take each question as it appears in the agenda. Councillor Hemingway, facility and portfolio of health, climate change and environment. Would you please reply to the first question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank Councillor Gordon for his question on this important topic. The controlling group considers the matter of divestment from fossil fuels and West Yorkshire Pension Fund very carefully for some time now, taking in mind the potential impact on pensioners, on our staff, and all those who have a stake in the fund. We balance that against the climate emergency and the fiduciary duties of trustees. We've requested information from the fund from campaigners, debated these democratically and thoroughly as a group. This is an important decision that we thought we had to get right. I'm pleased to report that at our last group meeting, we agreed to support divestment of the West Yorkshire Pension Fund in a measured way, and as I announced at the last cabinet meeting, we're looking to formally adopt this as a policy of the council imminently.
Thank you, Councillor Hemingway. Councillor Gordon, there's a question. Do you have a supplementary question? Not a statement, question.
It was just in terms of, as was stated in the original question, it's been something that's been ongoing for a number of years, and myself have raised consistently, asking a different number of cabinet portfolios on this issue. What sort of message and what sort of message is conveyed to residents that this is a climate emergency when it's taken 2 years for the council to decide on what it's doing?
I think it's absolutely right that we consider the ramifications of making a decision like this on people that stake in the pension fund, and I make no apologies for that. We want to see our staff worse off, and we balance that with the climate emergency and all the work that we're doing. So I think our policy now of divestment in a measured way, allowing the trust time to develop its own policy to move away from fossil fuels is the right decision. And it's disappointing that we seem to be using the climate emergency to make a political point here. We all need to take action on the climate emergency. It's not a part of this issue. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Councillor Hemingway. Next one is Councillor Bamford. As portfolio holder for regeneration, economic growth and property, would you please reply to the second question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Gordon, for the question. A little confused by the question, if the truth be known, because you stated in your question that we are advertising new facilities and provisions that were made available at Kensington before consultation. So the consultation was actually conducted between September and November in 2018. We had around 800 responses. These were then analysed and fed into the vision and then into the action plan. Vision, action plan, published far and wide. And then now, I think you're referring to, I don't have a colour copy, but I think you're referring to this document here, which is now additional engagement with residents, businesses, and for that matter, young people and pupils. And that is making a statement that says, of the consultation responses, people identified that they would like a certain amount of services, and we are content with that level of service that people are asking for. So subject to demand for those services in a suitable location, i.e. the club being available, we intend to provide those services.
Councillor Gordon, as a question of your supplementary, another question.
In regards to what you just said, in terms of the fact that there is the ongoing consultation about whether people agree or disagree with the services which are listed, the point is that when we've already seen multiple other consultations, like the local area master plan consultation, where we've seen, for instance, people ask that they want to local facilities, or want to employment opportunities, and what say HDBs on grid. It was only a week or two back when we were talking about the potential for big residential expansion. So what faith should residents have that you're going to listen to them and put forward what they say? When you ask them a question and you come back with a different answer to something that they didn't ask, or you didn't ask them.
Councillor Barker.
I didn't actually hear everything that you said. I picked up on what Councillor Sanders said earlier. It's a bit croaky, I use the term croaky, not garbage. But I am old and I don't hear English. But I disagree with the fundamentals of your question. We're not doing further consultation. We are engaging with people saying this is what we asked us to deliver. We're now thinking of delivering this in such a positive way. And I believe, to pick up on some other points from the opposite colleagues here, to have this level of service delivered across the district will be amazing. I just find it a bit peculiar questioning if you want to do this in your area.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Barker, you're up again. As called for a liberal for regeneration economic growth and property, would you please reply to the third question detailed in the agenda?
Thank you for your question number 3. I think this is now the third or the fourth time I've asked this question. At least once, maybe twice of officers. Once of me on the 2nd of September, which I did reply to, and then finally again to full council today. And if you just humour me for a moment, I'll just repeat the answer that I gave in my email to you on the 13th of September. That thought has been given to the serving of alcohol within this building. There are many separate entrances which have been provided to enable separation. Thought has also been given to the timing of activities within the centre in order to avoid chaos.
Councillor Gordon, as a questioner, do you have a supplementary question, not a statement?
So what you just said is incorrect. It was the 1st of September when I emailed you. And in terms of the question about the following, is you've not yet answered the question that was issued in the first instance. And while saying you've already offered a reply came 12 days after the email, after the deadline for me to submit a question. So saying, well, we answered it, well, yeah, you pulled your finger out of then you answered this question. I spoke with the council's alcohol and drug service provider there, and they said that they did not think that it would be appropriate to provide in-house. I'm trying to get to the question. It's funny, isn't it? I think the council is making random statements opposite, and that's allowed.
Members, please, Councillor Gordon, please ask your questions. Councillor Byford.
The council drugs and alcohol services were asked if they would look at providing the service in-house in the Kennel Club. They said they did not see or think the venue was appropriate to do so. Why is it that the council's own service doesn't think it's appropriate to provide alcohol support in a pub? Why is it that you think it is?
Councillor.
I didn't say that I thought it was. You asked me a question and I'm not the portfolio who would be delivering that service. I answered the question to the best of my abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byford. Next question to Councillor Graham's portfolio holder of culture, leisure and sport. Would you please reply to the fourth and final question?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. A need for this development was identified in a number of reports, in particular the Wakefield Leisure Review 2014. The Leisure Review concluded that there was a need for a wet and dry facility to replace those that Nottingham Castle and the Pontefract that met the needs and the expectations of the local market. As part of the Leisure Review, a number of sites for a new leisure facility were considered, and this review recommended the Pontefract Park because it will be the best location to meet the identified need. As part of the plan application, another site exercise was carried out, which also concluded the same. Care was also taken as part of this assessment to ensure the site will be fully accessible by public transport from across the area it proposed to serve. In addition, residents in these areas could also access other council aspire sites by public transport. The site is fully adapted for disability access, including the provision of disability parking spaces straight outside and new pool cards, entry system to the water. The site is accessed on a single level with 2 lifts provided to ensure that disabled people can access the gym area. And the building was also designed with dementia in mind and is fully compliant with dementia design guides. Last point, the provision for disabled residents far outweighs the previous provision outlined in those 3 sites.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Gordon, have you got a question? A supplementary one and not please make it precise because we've got quite a large agenda.
So just in terms of what you said there about accessibility, I come back to what, you've not really answered the question in terms of what actual considerations and what assessments were done in impact. I know firsthand that one of the first people I spoke to was a gentleman who lived round the corner from the Nottingham facility, then couldn't go and access facilities that his doctor prescribed him because of transport barriers. So what work and what consideration was given to that? I can't really do much more than reiterate and ask a point that by putting services in some of the deprived areas, you've got people who have the least access and least means to be able to access stuff, and there isn't the public transport and infrastructure there. So I mean, again, come back to it's not much analysis of what work was actually properly carried out, and where is that information, and is it publicly available?
Councillor Graham's already answered that, so you've nothing further to ask.
We have got the reports and the surveys that were carried out, and I'm happy to share them.
Absolutely fine. We're moving on to agenda item 10. This is the final agenda which members consider motions proposed by members. 5 motions have been proposed. The first motion is from Councillor Gordon. Would you please move your motion to Councillor Gordon?
This motion is something that I heard about from fantastic Liberal Democrat colleagues in Sunderland, a traditional Labour local authority where we went from just one councillor to a strong group which now can push the council into no overall control. It's also worth mentioning this was something that I had a number of residents in my ward contact me about as part of the RSPCA's campaign on this very issue, pets as prizes. Under the Animal Welfare Act in 2006, Section 11, it is only illegal to transfer a pet as a prize to an unaccompanied person who's under the age of 16. Fairs can evoke a sense of nostalgia with candy floss and arcade games. Sadly, there's no fun at the fair for animals who are given away as prizes. These are often goldfish, and they're often in unsuitable plastic bags for long durations where they can become deoxygenated or can already die before they leave due to temperature changes. And that's before they even get home, where many people often aren't prepared to maintain and look after winning a new pet at a fair. Many people would not accept giving out dogs and cats as prizes for winning a game at a fun fair, but for goldfish it is still something that is all too common, and there is no law across England and Wales banning it. Whilst candy floss at fair might come in a plastic bag, pets should not. Having spoken with council officers about this motion before I put it forward, it turns out the last time this very issue was raised was almost a decade ago, coincidentally by one of the Liberal Democrat councillors at the time. Whilst Wakefield Council officers said that there is a discretionary and soft ban already in place, this motion would make it clear and ensure that it is council policy and would be enforced. Today we have the opportunity to stand up against animal cruelty and not only make a difference locally, but also this motion would seek to write to the government urging a national ban of this, of giving away fish as prizes and other animals as prizes on both public and private land. I hope that councillors across this chamber will get behind this motion. This is something that is already the law in Scotland, and in recent weeks other local authorities, including Bristol and Sunderland, and even in the Greater London Assembly, have raised and voted for similar motions. Voting for this motion will add support to the RSPCA campaign and add pressure to the government to act nationally, whilst we make sure that we do what we can to enforce this locally. When it comes to pets as prizes, whilst people might win at a fun fair, the pets themselves are certainly the losers.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Is this motion seconded?
Yeah, I second
that motion.
Councillor Hayes, in seconding the motion, do you wish to formally speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
Speak later.
Okay. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? May I remind members that speeches must be directed to the question under discussion after a personal explanation or point of order. No speeches may exceed 5 minutes. Councillor Morley.
Just a clarification, Madam Mayor, that's all. Obviously, everyone's well aware my background in the travel and bearing industry. I'm a former chair of Children's Guild, represents them. Do I need to declare an interest, that's all?
We will note it on the minutes. Councillor Byford.
Okay. Just for this clarity, when I spoke earlier, you were very insistent about a date that I'd sent an email to you. So picking up on the bit more clarity, it wasn't nearly a decade ago that this was discussed, it was 13 years ago. It was in 2008. And as a result of that conversation with Council in 2008, the Council adopted 2 points of action, which we have stuck to ever since. And this motion will actually formalise these 2 points of action. So from that point of view, it's supported in that respect. And what we did is that all property leases and licences that are issued by this council have restrictions in place which stipulates that the selling of wild animals on council land is not permitted, and it will be a breach of any licence, therefore allowing enforcement and the possible removal of these persons. There is a note in that in some instances this may only be removed. For example, if the RSPCA wish to carry out some action on our land. And that will only be moved then with the appropriate authorisation from the authority. And the second one is that Council cannot facilitate the safety advisory group that reviews all events within the district through a multi-agency team. And each organiser has written to inform them of restrictions and conditions in relation to health and safety and planning of the event. And this does include a clause which states clearly that we have control over X. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions?
I'm broadly supportive of Councillor Gordon's motion because I don't believe that animals or any living creature should be given away as a prize. However, I think you would grasp the whole thing much better having done a bar chart for us to show how many of these animals survived to get home.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Stanley.
Thank you. I wasn't sure, Tom, whether to declare an interest in this because when I was younger, I actually won a golf pitch at whole parent.
How long is it?
And it is much less pet, and I've got to say, I think, it meant a lot to me as a child. But in this instance, times have changed, and we will support this motion only because this meeting just seems to be descending into the Tom Gordon bid for a Lib Dem parliamentary candidate.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to remind the Council that we are still in the pandemic, where we have all issues and very, very uncertain winter to come. We have economic recovery plan to work on, employment growth, and I want to tell Councillor Gordon, stop feeling where Rome is burning.
Any further questions or comments to Councillor Gordon's motion? I'm feeling we need to move on to the next time. Councillor Gordon, there's no further motion. Do you wish to reply? In exercising your right to reply, may I remind you that no new matter can be introduced.
Just in reply to some of the points which have been raised, I didn't necessarily follow Darren's points. I appreciate the council's already got some stuff in place, and again, this motion is broader and more encompassing that would seek to enforce such a matter. When I asked how it is enforced, officers said there wasn't much of a way of it. And the third point it comes as well is to make sure that this council adds its name to the RSPCA's campaign, making sure that we are there asking for an outright ban on this. So it is bigger than just here at Wakefield. Just in regards to Councillor Stansby's comment, she seems to have forgotten that I've already had a parliamentary candidacy twice before, but I'll forgive her, given that it's quite easy to get confused.
You didn't hear the rest of that said in a safe seat.
Oh, in a safe seat. I didn't hear that, sorry. I think everyone's having economic problems. And what I would say in response to the comment which was made by Councillor Harvey, stop fiddling whilst Rome is burning, what has she contributed towards today's debate?
Councillor Gordon. I think we need to move to the vote, please. Please, all those in favour of Councillor Gordon's motion, please show your hands. Anybody that's against the motion? Any abstentions? That is carried. As you are aware, councillors, we do need to take a brief interval. I think now would be a perfect time to take a 15-minute break. Let's all have a break. Please, Matt, come back ready for the next Please be seated. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that short interlude. We're going to move on swiftly with the agenda now. We're going to move on to the second motion, which is also the Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gordon, would you please move your motion to the Council?
I'm just going to try and speak without the microphone because hopefully it might be a little bit better for people further away.
Yes.
Hopefully that's a less croaky and less garlicky. Maybe that's just my voice. So, in this motion, as councillors in this chamber may or may already not know, at university I did my undergrad in biochem and then a master's in public health and then went on to work as a health economics research assistant at the Uni of York. I have a keen interest and passion for public health, a field that has often, until recently, been overlooked, often seen as the fund sponges who come up when we want to ban something. In the time that I've been elected to Wakefield Council, I've been aware of at least 2 local fatalities where residents have passed away from cardiac events. As this motion notes, on average, over 30,000 people each year will suffer a sudden cardiac arrest outside of hospitals. 20% of these occur in public spaces. Only 10% of people survive cardiac arrests when they occur outside of hospitals. Automated external defibrillators can play a significant role in saving lives of people who suffer such events in public spaces, and it's estimated that a shock from an AED and CPR can increase survival rates up to 75 or 80%. There are many council-owned public defibrillators across our city, towns and villages, but there are some gaps in provision, and I'm sure there are many places where we don't know where these are located. At present, we don't have a holistic mapping system that lists all of the defibs across our local authority. At the outset of piecing together this motion, and I spoke with Anna Hartley, the Director of Public Health here, and I'm very grateful for the help and input she gave with researching this motion, in particular putting me in contact with other partner agencies. The ball is already rolling on some of this, and as a result of the conversations that I had with Anna, the Corporate Health and Safety Manager, Ben, has already started to compile a list of council-owned defibrillators, something that we didn't previously have. This motion would resolve to a number of key things, but it is flexible and gives council officers scope on the way in which we best achieve this. Firstly, it would seek to compile a list and map defibrillators across our area. These are ones which were perhaps publicly owned by the council, or maybe ones which we've given community grants to fund in community centres, sports clubs and other venues. It's key to note that this motion does say in there that this will be done in conjunction with other partners. There are already a number of different schemes which are looking and seeking to do this work, and this motion will give the council flexibility to see how it would best tie in with those agencies. It could just be that we could then compile a list and a map and pass that along to other agencies, offer to work with them, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something that the council has ownership of. I'd be more than happy to see a map from another agency like Circuit or YAS embedded in the council website. I would also seek to increase the provision of defibrillators in public spaces. Leeds Council, back in 2019, announced plans to ensure every council ward had at least 4 defibrillators, which were then mapped. This motion doesn't seek to set out an arbitrary limit on the number of defibrillators in each ward, and it would not be the best way to do that. It leaves it open to council officers and partner agencies to figure out what the best way of making sure that there are access to defibrillators that in areas that we don't already have them. There may well already be lots of defibs we don't know about until we carry out work to do this. This motion will also seek to set out and offer people, community groups, sport teams, training on using defibrillators too. And that again was something that happened with a similar motion and a similar piece of work by Leeds Council. And I'm sure it would be great if this was to be successful, this motion, and was something that we could then roll out. It'd be great to see local councillors from in this chamber as well, who haven't already had such training, to be involved in it. And finally, it would seek to bring a detailed report back to this council, identifying the need for extra provision and how we can then work to address this. I'm not saying, and nor does this motion, that this couldn't be done, again, reiterating the point, through working with partner organisations. And that was something that when I initially put the motion forward, I then tweaked it to include that after conversations with the Director of Public Health and colleagues in other areas. Again, I would just say that if indeed the best approach is to work with a partner organisation, then this motion gives scope to council officers to do that. I don't think it is for us to micromanage and detail in depth how council officers do their jobs. Rather, we should provide a broad stroke goal and approach to it. This is very much a motion that is at the start of a piece of work. It is not a finished product, and I hope council colleagues will bear that in mind when it comes to talking, debating, and also voting on this. In short, this motion will do little to help residents who've already lost loved ones to heart attacks and cardiac events. Hopefully, with the steps outlined and the subsequent work done, it will help to prevent further unnecessary deaths in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Is the motion seconded?
Yeah, I second the motion.
I second the motion. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
Reserve the right to speak.
Does anyone wish to speak on the motion? May I remind members that speeches will be directed to question and discussion after a personal explanation or point of order. No speeches may exceed 5 minutes. Councillor Stanford.
Thanks, Madam Chair. You mentioned about Leeds having 4 AEDs in each ward. Thanks to the hard work in our community, our ward, Redthorpe and Melbourne West, actually has 5 with a further 2 in the pipeline. Yeah, I do like to boast about my ward, but that's not the point I'm making. The point is, I suspect that there are quite a few people sitting here today who can say the same thing or similar. So there will be wards that have more than the fair share of defibrillators, and there'll be wards that don't. Now, I appreciate where you're going with it, but are you aware that when you dial 999, the operator will tell you if there is a defibrillator within 3 miles of the incident? And also, obviously, as you mentioned, local sports groups will have unregistered AEDs, but they tend to be mobile, so I'm not sure how that will work. I just feel the motion just feels a little bit woolly, and I think it might need a little bit more work on it before we actually ask the officers to do quite a considerable amount of work on this. And I do think that giving a timescale by the end of this year, given everything that is going on at the moment, I would be unclear as to how the officers would have time to do all of this. Because, it's a good motion. I don't know if you're aware, but Wakefield Walking Football Club recently used their defibrillator and saved the life of a 60-year-old man, one of the players. So yeah, it's a great motion, but I think it just needs a little bit more work, a little bit sharper focus, and maybe more time to the officers to do the job that you're asking them to do. But other than that, yeah, we do support the motion.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think this is a good motion. I know I've been in touch with the local football club that were trying to collect the monies to get some defibrillators for the football club. Many people associate heart attacks with older people that can affect any age group. So this was a young football club that wanted to have the facility to have a defibrillator with them. We all remember seeing this summer the effect of having a defibrillator very, very handy and very, very quickly during the Euro competition, which saved the life of a player. So I think this is a good motion itself. It might be a bit worrying, but as you said, it's the start of it, and it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And I think it would be a good thing that if more people were made aware where they can get these facilities, and perhaps extend it so that we can take it across the board. And I know some work is being done with football clubs and with clubs to make these facilities available for them, to keep these sports people safe.
Thank you, Councillor Keith. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, just to be clear from all my colleagues on this side,
supportive of this approach. We need to ensure that our defibrillators installed when needed across our district. However, I am conscious that if we start off another piece of work, we could be duplicating work that's already been undertaken by Yorkshire Air Ambulance around the location, Yorkshire Ambulance Service around the location of defibrillators. But also I'm aware that the NHS and British Heart Foundation have said they are also working on a piece of work called Circuit, and that will build up a national defibrillator network. So I absolutely understand where Councillor Gordon's coming from this, but I think as a council we should wait to see where our partners go first and support them rather than actually getting ourselves involved in any more work and possibly duplicating. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any further questions or replies? Councillor Gordon?
I agree with Councillor Foster that and my concern is the amount of sort of council officers out. And as somebody who probably need jump-starting in the not too distant future, I'm probably, I'm really interested to find out where all the defibrillators are. But while I support it, it's the time consumption of officers that concerns me.
Any further questions or comments on this? Bear with me, I'll turn my page. Councillor Gordon, as member of the motion, do you wish to reply?
The only thing I would say is, in terms of with stuff, other points which have been raised, the council does have a process for refining motions. It's called an amendment. If councillors in the lead opposition group or opposite wanted to amend the motion, I would have been more than welcome to have a discussion with them on how it would have been improved. I'm grateful to hear that there's broad support for this motion already. I don't think that being party political should mean that we can't work with each other and seek to improve each other's work across this council chamber. So I just hope in future that rather than coming here and saying it could be better, if you've got better ideas, then do chip in. I'm not going to be offended by it. I'd actually welcome it.
Councillor Gordon, as member of the motion, you have the right to amend or withdraw the motion. So if you wanted to sort of withdraw it and have a discussion about amending it, or whether you wanted to amend it today to say what we could do is we support the motion, but we want to wait, put a timescale on it until we've seen what's coming from the other agencies. It's entirely up to you.
I'll take Oswald's suggestion if we could move the date from 2021 to 2022 and review the report.
Yeah, simply happy with that.
Sorry. Councillor, we couldn't hear what your amendment was, because it's either got to be you're removing it today or there's an amendment going to it. If you're pushing an amendment, then make your amendment clear in order to support this motion going forward, which everybody wants to support.
Councillor Gordon, would you like to stand up and move your amended motion?
The amendment that I was saying, sorry again, I appreciate the microphones and the audio, it's not great. The amendment I was just saying, I was taking the advice and suggestion of Olivia in the report back bit. If you change the date from 2021 to 2022 to give more scope and time for this to be fully explored and work commence.
Okay, just to clarify to members, Councillor Gordon is moving the end of the report to bring the report back to full council before the end of 2022, detailing the plans for all our AEDs across the local authority, and to produce a fully interactive mapping system to locate all public defects in our town, cities and villages. So that will give us an opportunity to see the work that the British Heart Foundation and local agencies are doing first, to see where theirs are, and then we can fetch that back. So that's what we're voting on, is that correct? Fabulous. So, all those in favour of the motion, the amended motion, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? No, that is carried. The third motion on the agenda today is from Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley, please move up. It's just a change, not to be Councillor Morley.
Oh, Madam Mayor, we do love you. Fantastic. Oh, Madam Mayor. Yes, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, someone who's never had any really involvement in the mining industry, or my family has no long history in there, it's something I'm very, very aware of. In Vestry Castleford, I'm representing Stanley release to all communities born of coal. Speaking to local residents and local groups over a number of years, they asked us and persuaded us back in 2016 to fetch a motion here about the mine workers pension scheme and about the unfairness of the surplus sharing of that scheme. We did that, Madam Mayor, and it got cross-party support calling on the government to relook at the scheme. I think something that's really fetched home to me in the last 18 months is when we last talked about the scheme, one of our former colleagues, someone who was a good friend of mine as Councillor Alan Wassell, passed away. Alan never took his pension. He was saving for a rainy day, he said. He never took that pension. But yet, Madam Mayor, thousands of miners lose their lives every year, they pass on. And this scheme has been closed since 1994, so no new people are coming in. Madam Mayor, in 1994, the mine workers pension scheme was privatised. It was agreed that the government would get 50% of their surplus from the fund in return for guaranteed value will not decrease. Today, the government has received £4.4 billion from this scheme in cash payments, and is due to receive another £1.9 billion. The government has not paid anything into this scheme for the past 27 years, and according to the recent inquiry, is in very bad ever will. Bear in mind we went through the financial crisis of 2008, and nothing's ever taken out of the scheme. Earlier on this year, Madam Mayor, the select committees of the Parliament looked into the scheme, which we all found very strange. We wouldn't be able to do that. Maybe we thought somewhere moving forward, but the government will not take any action or recommendation that the surplus sharing scheme should end. Madam Mayor, if the scheme and fair sharing surplus were awarded to the pensioners, the mine working pension scheme, that would give an extra £14 a week into the average working, to the average for a miner. That's a massive uplift to that pension. That's money that would be better spent in the local authority, the local council, authority, the local shops and elsewhere. I guess what I'm trying to say, Madam Mayor, that it's not fair. The scheme's not fair. It's never cost this government or any successive government anything to guarantee the scheme. Give the miners back what they paid into this scheme. That's what I'm saying, Madam Mayor. Make it fair. But it's been a cash cow for years and years and years. It's now time to give the miners what they deserve back. I know that this gets cross-party support once again and call on the government to be fair to the miners. Madam Mayor, I will keep members of council support.
Thank you, Councillor Marley. Is the motion seconded?
Second motion.
Councillor Tully, responding to the motion, do you wish to come and speak now, or is there a right to speak later in the day?
I'll speak now.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to second this motion. Councillor Moore touched on the sort of bold figures, this 4.4 billion, the 1.62, the 1.9 and the things you get. And I can treat one of the within the scope of the resolution. But when we look at the situation in our industry, pre-1994, the coal board spent years and years taking what we call contribution holidays. He paid out then when we were all chucking into it. So the government's never paid anything like the scheme was privatised in 1994. And during that period, during the 80s and 90s, like me and some of the people that's in this room as well, would have seen what we needed to do to establish on the register prescribed industrial diseases for pneumoconiosis, or vibration like finger, arthritic knees. These weren't given to us on a plate. We had to take them all the way to the High Court, and I sat 3 years ago on the industrial injuries representative, and we fought for years. So when we did eventually get some meagre compensation for our miners, we were paying ourselves. The government weren't paying it. They'd already nicked £4.9 billion. So when they were throwing 50 quid council issue because they've got a disabled knee, and I said that as an example, it's money that they'd already taken off him. It's money that this government has spent years and years and years reducing. So what I would say is that we need to make sure that we keep this argument and keep this fight going. There were 6 Tory members of Parliament voted on that Biz committee that this money should be paid back to the miners. And what offends me out of all the 6 is Alex Stafford, who sits as a Conservative member of Parliament in Rother Valley. Probably got more disabled, widows and miners in his area than anybody else on that list. But then when it went back to the government, they all turned turtle and leaned them by the whips and voted it down. So it is important that we, as a council, and I would ask all the council to support this resolution. Miners have been robbed. They've been robbed for years. The average miner's pension today is about 84 quid a week. It's about 84 pounds. And if you're lucky enough to get a widow's pension, it can be 2/3 of that. So this money is money that should never have been taken out of the scheme in the first place. It needs putting back into the scheme so mine workers in their old age can have some dignity and can have some self-respect, and they can look after their people and they can look after their families, which money that they paid in. And I would certainly ask this council today to come behind the resolution and unanimously support the resolution as it's written in the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Does anyone member wish to speak on the motion? May I remind members that each of the directors to the question and discussion of personal explanation or point of order, no speech may exceed 5 minutes. But Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Supporting the motion, and I hope it will get cross-party support. The government is committing the high robbery, stealing money from miners and their beneficiaries, which in turn is taking money out of our local economy and all coalfields. We have lots of thousands of more miners and beneficiaries every year. What is great unfair is that when all miners pass away at their beneficiaries, all the money and the assets go to the legislative government, so they will get it anyway. That is grossly unfair. It should be given back to the miners. They also represent the area of the stone mining and stone coalfield, which at that time, the relatively young workforce. It is alarming that the last 2 years alone, we have lost 18 members. 18 members in the last 2 years. I support the motion, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Stansby.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, we do support this motion. However, I will take notice regarding some of the vocabulary used. Nicked, daylight robbery. I disagree with that. The initial agreement was a fair agreement. It has become, and it has been gone, it's a 27-year-old agreement. At the time it was set up, it was agreed with the mine workers and the government at the time. Both sides were happy. But over the years, it is no longer a fair agreement, and that's why we will be supporting the motion, agree 100% that this should be revisited and that the miners should get their additional £14 a week. One thing I would ask Steve, £84 a week, it doesn't sound a lot, but my pension thanks to Gordon Brown is going to be £10 a week. So I just hope that you will speak as enthusiastically in defence of my pension as you do with mine. But yes, we will be supporting this motion.
Councillor Swift.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I want to talk about the importance of this issue to the district as a whole. It's not simply an issue of social justice. It is an issue of social justice, and there's others that from personal experience can speak much better than I can on that issue. And it was what could be regarded as an unequal agreement, in the sense that it was an agreement struck at the time when the representatives of people in the mining industry were in a particularly weakened situation, and the government took advantage of the divisions. But But nonetheless, let's look at the importance. That 1/3 of the members in this room declared an interest. I mean, I think that is indicative of just how widespread amongst the population of Wakefield this issue is. And if that approximate number was carried forward as a cross-section, we're talking of something like 100,000 people in this district that have got an interest in one form or another on this. It's an issue of significant economic importance. And I do think that we should, I hope, that we can actually go beyond simply sending one of these ritual letters off to government ministers that are simply put on the pile. I would hope that we can actually do the kind of thing that I know myself and many others were involved in the 1990s and in the early 2000s, when there was significant campaigning across local authorities in the coalfield areas. Done at that time through what was then the Coalfield Communities Campaign. It's transformed itself into the Industrial Communities Alliance. But it was where local authorities that all had a significant amount of skin in the game on this got together, shared the costs of research, shared the costs of mounting conferences, and there's a great deal, even of people who are emotionally sympathetic to us in Parliament, but who still can't deny the issue that there was something reasonable in this as a payment for the government underwriting it. As has been commented previously, 27 years. We've seen the high-tech bubble come and go, we've seen the credit crunch come and go, we've seen pandemic. Stock markets have gone up and gone down. At no single point has the government been called on to meet any part of its guarantee. I think the case is proved and proved over, and I certainly hope, I mean it is a cross-party issue anyway, and I would hope that we could carry it unanimously, and I would certainly hope that our support for this issue, in the genuine interests of the people of this district, can actually go beyond simply a routine letter to a minister. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Longford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There seems to be some confusion on the other side, and I can understand because, I don't think there's anybody here who thinks that somebody shouldn't get the money that they need for a pension scheme, because there isn't anyone. Okay? So, but the fact is, in 1994, that deal was probably a fair and reasonable deal at the time. Even the Mine Workers Union have intimated as much. Because the government were giving a guarantee that most pension funds would kill for. And it allowed the Miners' Union to adopt a more high-risk investment profile, which produced more surplus, and so on and so forth. It wasn't just a case of the government stealing money from the miners. The miners' pension fund, I apologise, the miners' pension fund, would have earned considerably less without that government guarantee, because they would have had to take a more a different approach to their investments, let's say. And what's happened really is it's become unfair, and there's no question that that's the truth. The government haven't paid any money in, strictly speaking. It pays, I think it was 600 million that came from the government's original share of surplus, which the government left in the miners' pension fund. They didn't take the initial 50% that was agreed. They left it in the fund. And 600 million at the turn of the century was paid out of that fund that the government has left there to support the pensions of miners. Blair looked at it, he thought it was fair. So, I know how much you all like it. So, you're bound to agree with me that, it's something that's become unfair, and there's no doubt about it. And if you look at the parliamentary report simply asks the government to adjust its percentage to something that actually represents the risk posed. And the risk posed, let's be frank, is pretty minimal. I think I've seen it as 7% somewhere. So, on that basis, we support it, because I think you're asking for the government to adopt the recommendations of the Select Committee, which is what they recommended, really. And so, but the idea that the government just took the money from the miners' pension fund and did nothing, they didn't. They gave you a guarantee that most pension funds would kill for. They would kill for.
Councillor Kitchens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My support for this motion really comes from my heart. I'm the daughter of a miner, and I can remember when I was a child, my mother worrying about my dad, especially when we were on afters. Oh, my dad's alright, oh, my dad comes in, looking worried, and it was getting to almost after 9 o'clock and we weren't home. I can remember seeing on his shoulder blades little blue stars, asking him, where did you get them? What's them, Dad, on your shoulders? Oh, it's when coal falls down and it's your little stars. So, how can it be right that this government can think it's right to take 50% of surplus money from miners that contribute to nothing? I know I may be repeating myself, but that's the true fact of it. I also remember that the Tory government, what it's done to the miners' communities. I remember when I was a kid, what the miners did for us, gala days throughout the district, different events going on. They've decimated our mining communities, and we still haven't got over it. All these years, it might be 30 odd years ago, as you just alluded to. But on that, it's not only wrong, in my opinion, it's immoral, and I wholeheartedly support this motion.
Councillor Shaw.
Thanks for that. I mean, I'll be brief, Madam Mayor, because we've had somebody raised there, and I think this is so important to me. I, like all of us, I don't have to declare anything, because unfortunately, all my uncles and people who were involved in the mine today, that I know, and half of them, I'm talking about probably half a dozen, at least 3 or 4 of them are going to be sought pension because of the conditions of working there. I wanted to sort of say that. But the other thing is, I've been involved in pensions now for about 30 odd years, and pension director, trustee, and I'm still a trustee of a local company in Castleford. And there is a difference here, and it's an important difference. I go back to when surpluses started sort of coming through, because the company that I'm involved in actually put quite a lot of money alongside the people that were working there as well. And when they put that money in, all of a sudden, something came forward called a surplus. And the company didn't come to us as trustees and say at that time, can we have some sort of deal about, we'll take on to the surplus out and you keep talking to the surplus. Guess what they did? Because the Barber report were around at that time about females, and actually reducing when they could get the pensions. And so the company agreed with the trustees that what they do, they spend the surplus on giving better pensions. This is what Steve's talking about, on better pensions, and by making sure that it was equalised for women who worked at that company to get the same pensions. They didn't say we want 50%, they said we'll put it in. And guess what? About 5 years later, the company came back because we didn't have a surplus and we needed to look at it. And instead of people putting more money in, the company have to support it. And if anybody thinks that that's just a British company, the Americans stepped in a few years ago, looked at what we were doing, and they agreed to keep on supporting that side of it. And then the Swiss have agreed to support it. But guess what? This government wants to still take more money out of it. The miners. They ought to take, they keep on about the private sector, they ought to look at the private sector with pensions on a lot of them, because in the private sector, that money will be put back in, and the miners will be getting that money as soon as possible back on the pensions. Instead of £84, and I don't know it's £14, Steve, I haven't got a clue, but it'd be significantly higher than what it is. And that's why we have to understand pensions. It's not just about, and Kevin said, it's about the economy, it's about a number of different things, about equalising things up and all that side of it. I fully support what's happening here, and I think everybody ought to be shouting from the top of their voices, put the money back in. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Tully.
regarding the 1994 settlement. The settlement, that's the only example. All I'm saying is...
Councillor Lee, you have a factual presentation. You can do something that's personal explanation to some material part or an earlier speech by the member which may have been misunderstood. Councillor Lee, what I'm saying is you can't do a personal explanation of something that's been misunderstood. Has something been misunderstood by somebody?
I believe so, yes. And all I'm saying, I'll keep it brief.
Something that you said, not something that somebody else has said.
The lifetime guarantee, which was agreed, the pension agreement, which was agreed in 1994.
Councillor Tully, is it something that you said?
Yes.
Right.
Not protect. It protected the lifetime guarantee, not the old pension. The 1994 agreement protected the percentage, which was a lifetime guarantee. And our trustees at the time would either take it or leave it. And our pension is grown into £3. Your pension, your lifetime guarantee, which is a small degree, and your bonuses. It was only to protect that small section rather than the old pension. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, thank you for explanation. I am getting the feeling across the chamber that everybody is in agreement with this motion. Councillor Morgan has moved the motion. Do you wish to reply to it?
Just to say, Madam Mayor, I'm going to cross paths to what I think originally, put pressure on the government to make sure the scheme comes fair. I mean, whoever signed a contract 27 years ago, it needs looking at over time, it's quite right, so it was definitely good. Now, let's try and get some money back into the pensioners and then widows as well, get that money back into the district and support them people. Thank you.
Please, all those in favour of the motion, please show. I believe that's unanimous. Thank you. Motion number 4 is moved by Councillor Mrs. Jeffrey. Would you please move your motion to council, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it goes without saying that residents across our district are heading into much tougher times. Last month, Ofgem confirmed a 12% increase in the price cap on energy bills from October of this year. This increase will result in energy bills rising by at least £139 a year for around 11 million households on default direct debit tariffs and by £153 for 4 million households on prepayment meters, with a further rise predicted in spring 2022. Data from Local Government Association shows that 17.3% of households in our district are in fuel poverty as a result of pressure on household incomes and increases in fuel prices. The October energy increases will only make this situation worse. And worryingly, it has been reported that households will face a further increase in spring 2022. We want to make sure that everyone in our district lives in a warm, healthy and efficient home. By tabling this motion to Council, Labour Council are seeking to raise awareness about the schemes we have in place as a council to help support our residents who are struggling. But we cannot look at energy increases in isolation. The Resolution Foundation has reported that families receiving universal credit payments are 4 times as likely to the wider UK population to be impacted by the pending energy bill hike. The Foundation estimates that energy bill increases are set to hit around 4.4 million households on universal credit. This in the same month that the £20 uplift is set to be withdrawn, which will see many residents lose £1,000 from their annual income, creating a real hardship. We have seen a 17% increase in the price of a litre of petrol. We have seen our average food shop increase by 5%. Inflation in August jumped to 3.2%. Add this up and the average family will be worse off by 10 to 12%. A family with 2 children will be losing about £105 per month. As a council, we are doing much to help struggling families. The Recovery Board is embarking on a benefits campaign which will see the council and its partners travel across the district offering benefit checks to ensure families are maximising what they're entitled to, whether they're in work or not. The council is also offering additional advice on how to get help through the Wakefield Council's Energy and Home Owner Support Team,
which delivers a number of schemes to support residents to improve their home insulation and heating. As we continue to promote and raise awareness of the advice and support available through the Smart Money scheme to help households reduce fuel bills and other costs, switch to cheaper energy channels, access the benefits that residents are entitled to, and maximise incomes. We all need to work together to let our residents know that help is available. My message today is clear. Don't struggle in silence. If you're in need of support, let us know, and the Council are here to help. I move the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor David. Is the motion seconded?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There isn't a great deal to add. I'm obviously mindful of the time we have another motion to discuss. I'll simply say this, it's a very easy motion. Nobody should have any great difficulties with it. It's simply saying we know people are struggling. We know they're going to struggle some more between energy prices and energy price hikes, NI hikes and all the rest of it. And we would just like to make sure that as far as possible everybody who's entitled to it gets it and know where it is and know how to find it, including particularly all those people who don't use the internet. Because it's quite easy when you do, but it's very hard to find out anything when you don't. You're a bit isolated and alone. With that, I second the motion. I hope you'll all support it.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Stansby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we will support this motion. Thank you for bringing it. It is a good motion. However, I do have a few questions on the motion. Citizens Advice estimates that 2 million people are behind on their energy bill. And we've just had one of the warmest summers, allegedly, on record. I think we need to look at why people are falling behind with their energy bills. You would expect, given that the summer's supposed to have been warmer, that they would use less electricity, unless they've all got air conditioning. So I think we need to possibly dig a bit deeper as to why people are falling behind on this. Also, we knew that fuel prices would rise as a result of the climate change pledges. We knew this at least 12 months ago, 18 months ago. So my question is, why have we not looked at this sooner? Why have we left it so late to look at this? It's a shame Maureen's not here because, you know, this is her portfolio, this is her department. Really, we should have been going out and doing this work, and it's a good work and it needs doing, but we should have been doing this sooner. Now, I've been involved with the Money Smart, and you know, we've dealt with residents and tried to help them, but I just feel we've left this too late. But yes, it's a good motion, and we will be supporting it.
Councillor Gordon.
I haven't intentionally or planned to speak on this motion because I appreciate people are probably getting somewhat tired of myself. It was just, I want to follow up on one of the points that Councillor Mitchell raised about the fact that it will, talking about how we're going to interact and engage with digitally excluded people, about, you know, often people who are, you know, older or perhaps are the most people who struggle with finances, who don't necessarily have access to the internet. So I think, you know, the fact that you specifically mentioned how we're going to do that is something worthy of note, and will be supporting me with the motion anyway. I think actually just one of the things that I do disagree with is what Councillor Stansby's just said there, trying to make out that these price hikes are as a result of the climate agenda. Well, actually, what we've seen is chronic underinvestment by the Conservative government in levelling up, as they like to call it, things to do with climate change and also power production. When there was a coalition government, and I know it wasn't perfect, there was a quadrupling of renewable electricity in that 5-year period under Ed Davey as the cabinet member responsible for it. We also saw investment in green infrastructure and a green improvement infrastructure and a green investment bank. All those, when the Tories got the keys to number 10 operate, were scrapped. Perhaps if we'd still invested in making people's bills lower in the first instance, we wouldn't now be facing this as a result of the callous actions of the Conservative government.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the other thing is that whilst we hear on the television that this is being blamed on the wholesale price of gas and the wholesale price of various different
that's what's happening across the board. You see bulk go, you see various different 1 or 2 more, and small energy suppliers go. And these people then are faced to go back to the supply and fast demand, which usually means that they will be signed up on a contract which face anything up to £1,000 a year hike on their gas bills. The Liberal Democrats, when they were in with the Conservatives, did come up with some original ideas about to get energy efficient boilers in the scheme. It was an original idea that put the price of the boiler onto your electric bill. So you bought the new boiler, nobody gave them it. There was no such thing as a free lunch. And that's why people there's still 20% of inefficient energy boilers out there on the domestic market. So what we've got to do is to review the situation and look at where we've gone since we saw Satan and told him. Thank you.
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I'm really glad that everybody is supporting this resolution, but I really do take exception to the idea that we're doing things too late. Certainly in my community and the community centres that I'm involved in, we've been pushing this for the last 2 years easily. And as the resolution says, further promote, to also continue to promote, encourage local organisations. I mean, this is what we've been doing because fuel was already expensive and it was already a worry to people. We've got a large percentage of people in our community who are living in poverty, and often it is, do we eat or do we eat? And so consequently we've got a situation where the heat this winter is going to be a real issue for an awful lot of people, but it already was last winter. So it's not a question of kind of a new thing or being delayed or being late with it or laid back about it. We've been trying to promote within the community what our people can do in terms of trying to preserve heat and also to actually manage on meagre incomes. And I do take exception to the point that it's delayed or we're doing it too slowly or whatever. We are not. We've been trying extremely hard to warn people of expensive heating bills and how to go with them for some time now.
Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just want to say something briefly about this, really. I wasn't going to say anything, but I very much support this motion and I'm glad we're all involved in it. A lot of families and people that are on low incomes have prepayment meters in their households. They are incredibly expensive and there's a lot of work that needs to be done in all areas, but especially to the suppliers and what they're doing to people on low incomes who have to prefer prepayment meters so they don't get a bill. That is managing their money in an efficient way. It's not managing their money if they have to go into the emergency and get charged for it daily and they have to pay more, and this is how debts incur. As a whole country, as a council, as a country, all the councils, wherever, I think we should put pressure on and even investigation into the suppliers and what they charge on prepayment meters. And that's so I'm very much in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Longwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Rowley says that it isn't about delay, but it is about delay. And it's going back a long time. And even in 2005, we had Alan Johnson in Parliament, or actually speaking at the time, but I stand corrected, where he said that the decision on a new nuclear power station might be taken as soon as this year, and that was in 2005. But nobody, the letter never arrived, as they say. Alan Johnson never delivered. I mean, it goes on and on. In 2009, there were questions in Parliament about nuclear power stations, and just to get one online by 2018, 2019, they needed to make a decision at the latest in 2009, and it wasn't done. So it's not, and I'm not saying that any Conservative government, county government that came in again, it's pressure from inside the parties. Well, we don't want nuclear power. At the end of the day, it's the only damn thing that keeps going. Go out there into the east of this district, and there's a lot of windmills that aren't turning around and not producing anything. And then when they finish with those blades, they bury them underground because they can't do anything with them. it goes on and on. You've got to face facts, and somebody needs to make a decision, but nobody is. That's the problem. But I support the motion.
Councillor Tully.
Yeah, quickly, just, I mean, Councillor Hawley did touch on it, and, you know, when we decided that we should have seen it coming, well, you know, I mean, I listened to the Prime Minister, not 48 hours, 72 hours ago, saying we want crisis. There isn't one, what crisis? I went to him Monday, probably since, it's only Wednesday today, I got an email on the hours Monday morning saying that my supplies now been taken on about British gas cost. The green energy company that I work with, thinking I'm in the right food and green credentials, has gone under. So to suggest for 1 minute that, you know, we should have seen it, you know, you can expand the debate you want, you can talk about, you know, the carbon dioxide situation, frozen food, and whatever with that particular industry as well. It's a mess. It's a mess. And it's a mess because all small down in the market for profit to the detriment of, and this short-term bubble has burst as comes of all bundles. Once again, the people will pay the price for higher energy bills that will be the people we talk about in the next resolution and the people we talk about in the previous two resolutions.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey, through the motion, do you wish to reply?
I will agree. Yeah, Nick, what you said is that we're delighted. This has been the work of the Recovery Board for the last 18 months. And my purpose in place of Maureen today bringing this was to let the public know that we are here, remind them that these things are here. And I have to say, I'm disappointed in your ex-leader because I made him my vice chair as a Recovery Board and he never attended once. So perhaps you will attend now at the Recovery Board and then you will perhaps all know what we are doing at the Recovery Board. I close the debate.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Right, I think we're going to take this motion to the vote now. So all those in favour of the motion, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Final motion on today's agenda is the motion proposed by Councillor Stanley. Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Will you please move your motion?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm fully aware that Councillor Cummings wrote to the Chancellor of the Exchequer in August this year. However, I just felt that this is such an important motion that it needed bringing to full council. It needed backing from our party as well. So that's why I brought it to full council. Now, as you're aware, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, the government very generously gave £20 uplift to recipients of the universal credit benefit. Now, that was only for universal credit recipients. It wasn't anything to do with legacy payments. It wasn't anything to do with people on pensions. It was for a specific group of people. Now, people in Wakefield have not been on universal credits or that one 2019. However, the 18 months that the uplift has been in place, because it was extended once already for a further 6 months, people have grown used to having the extra £20 in the pocket. Now, I don't know if you've been into the universal credits application screen, but it does say, as soon as you go into your account, as soon as you log in, it does say this is a temporary uplift. So people are, without doubt, informed that it is a temporary uplift. But we know how things have changed. We know how food bills have gone up. You know, you have noticed going to the supermarket. That will have increased. Energy bills have increased, as we've discussed, and then we'll go up further. And I just feel that we've moved on, we've changed, and we need to keep that £20 uplift. People have become reliant on the uplift, and we need to reiterate with the Chancellor, with the DWP, with our MPs for Wakefield, that it would be fair and prudent to keep that £20 uplift. We know what will happen. People will, I think Olivia might have already people may have to choose between food or fuel. So that will increase reliance on food banks. We've already noticed that people have got used to making unwise choices over the last 18 months. We've noticed addiction to alcohol and drugs has increased. So it's not just about writing to the government to ask to keep the £20 uplift, but we also need to work with other agencies to help people move away from the unwise choices and better use the money. I would prefer, in an ideal world, to have that uplift in place for a further 6 months to see us through the winter. And you know, private rentals are also increasing in prices. And again, you know, if people are going to fall behind with their rent, are we going to see increased evictions because of this? So I think it's very important for the residents of Wakefield that we do our uttermost best to try to retain this £20 uplift. With that, I move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. The motion seconded.
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Longwood, is seconded the motion. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'll speak now. I support this motion because I've been street thousands of times. You know, I've had nothing. It's all right. People sit there and tell you you're rich, it's nonsense. I've been broke loads of times with that children because I spent my money on my children. All right? And, you know, I know what it's like to have any money, and when you finally get some, you become dependent on that increase. You don't sort of say, well, we'll just sit back and save that bit. It's not how life is. You get. And it's really difficult to go back down again. You know, you've got to keep that up. And 20 quid can be a lot of money to some people, and that's for that reason I've agreed to ask the government to reconsider.
Thank you, Councillor Longwood. Councillor Tully has submitted an amendment to the motion. The amendment has been circulated to members prior to the meeting. Councillor Tully, would you please introduce your amendment?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I raise a point of order, point of information regarding the motion? There's two inaccurate paragraphs in the motion. I would request maybe convening outside to discuss and whether we proceed with the amendment. It should be withdrawn.
We're just going to take a few minutes for the legal advice to speak to Councillor Stanley. One moment. is to make an amendment to the motion. The amendment has been circulated to members. There are a few changes to that amendment, but Councillor Tully is going to introduce that amendment now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to move the amended amendment and explain to Councillor how we're going to do. When it says on paragraph, the withdrawal of the cut should be replaced by the withdrawal of the uplift. And then the bottom paragraph, the one below that, to take out completely the UN appointed rapporteur on extreme poverty, to take that paragraph out. And I think on that basis, I would like to think that it can be moved that as an amended motion across the whole county.
Councillor Tully, you can explain why you moved the amendment if you wish, no?
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, well, if that's accepted, I think that's... I'm moving this amendment because although the original motion covers a lot of this, I think we all agree on, it just failed to look at the issues of around people we represent in Wakefield. It didn't talk about the 40% of the people who are in work or in receipt of universal credit. And although, and within the amendment as well, the council coming to Britain to Will Quinns, and all we've got on the same box standard answer that, we're taking it away. So that is why it was important that we included within the amendment. That's why we wanted to introduce the amendment. And the reason why, is, I think we have to understand what the uplift, I'm not going to cut off, but an uplift means. It means that lots of people, we put this myth to bed that Trees Coffee had, that it's only another hour's work a week and you can make that money up. It actually worked out as 9 hours if she'd read a brief. And I'm trying to steer politically away from creating a political item. I think we've got some consensus from our colleagues on the other side that we all want as a council to support this resolution. It would be remiss of me not to make that point regarding the issue regarding universal credit. And there is 40% of our people across this region, across this county, that rely on universal credit. These are real people. These are people that will have to work, pay the bills, try to do the best they can, but are simply reliant on universal credit because in most cases, pretty poor employers will pay enough. In some cases, it's not pretty poor employers will pay enough, it's people who've got children, and we can only work so many hours for childcare. And when I heard people like Trees Coffee suggesting to me, well, if you work an extra couple of hours, you can make up this money, you can. Because when you read the universal credit regulations, once we hit the threshold, 62 pence of anything we earn over and above is taken away from us. But we've already seen, and we're going to see in the next 12 months, a 10% hike in national insurance across some of our poorest people. We've debated earlier and talked about and agreed about the increasing energy prices. And if you speak to the average family, certainly in my ward, they're saying to me, in 2023, we can say goodbye to at least one penny packet in that month with increases, with increased energy costs, increased national insurance contributions, and it's a fair amount of money. And I remember going on doorstep in 2017 and 2018 and listening to people say, don't vote Labour because they want to put a tax on jobs. And that's exactly what we've done. We're hiding behind the pandemic to try to suggest that we can stick a 1.5% increase on some of our poorest people. And it reminds me very much in 1970s on that television series when Bradley had a single building or an hospital, when your mind home in Lancashire in the early 1920s, but I'll be going to pound up a penny a week out of the way just to pay for it. We're paying for us own. So it's important that we keep up the pressure. Because when I see minister after minister and Tory MP and Tory MP traipsing through lobbies that don't even know, as Nadine Dorries says, price of a pint of milk when she included Cameron Osmond, she included Boris Johnson as well, and others. Because I also remember during scandal and expenses. When like vaccines minister, we all agree has done a fabulous job in his last 12 months, while claiming expenses to eat his stables that he kept his horses in while our people were doing me out. So when I see him day after day traipsing through, I don't believe him. And they did it again yesterday. They have no intention of keeping this uplift going unless we as a council collectively come together along with other pressure groups and keep up the pressure to make sure that this money stays in place so we can help and support some of our poorest people in this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tull. Is the amendment seconded?
Yes, Madam Mayor. It's great again that we've got universal support, but we really need to keep this going until, unfortunately, a decision, I suspect the wrong decision is made. I think Johnson said on the television yesterday that it was necessary to remove the £20 because it would mean that people would not only work longer but would also have wage increases. That's not evident. There's no sign of that at all. Other than the shortages for drivers and the like. But in the main, payments to those in employment, 40% of those in receipt of universal credit, are just not happening. I think what I just briefly want to mention, because I think that everybody else has spoken and said it, 20% of the children in Wakefield are already living in poverty. This is just going to add to the situation, and it's desperate for families. Remember that the third child from the 2017 was refused benefits, third and subsequent children. We've still got the bedroom tax, and we've got all these increases that we referred to in terms of heating and lighting and so forth. So I really do think that we need to keep highlighting the dilemma that an awful lot of people in our community are going to suffer. And therefore it's really important that we emphasise again that we really want that the government are not listening, and in fact we think it's desperate for our communities. I second the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Councillor Stansby, am I right to understand that you wish to accept the amendment to the motion and add it into your substantive motion? That's right. So, as a mover of this now new substantive motion, you have the right to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I'm not getting great reception in here. Thank you. The reason I'm going on my phone is that while we've been in the chambers, we've actually written to the following people with the letter in the hope that you would accept the changes and withdraw the inaccuracies. So we will be sending a letter to Therese Coffey, to all the MPs, and also to the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Madam Mayor. One more, we're going to Julian speak.
Can I just clarify, your amended motion, with the amended amendment, just so we're all really clear, calls upon the council to write, so notwithstanding that you have written a letter, if this is voted for, then the council will send that letter?
Yes, that's that.
Thank you.
Sorry, yes.
Mayor.
Councillor Rose.
I'm sorry, I'm starting to my feet on this. I think the action has just happened in advance of this council making a decision on this motion. Although it through discussion, there is a unanimity about it. It's far below what's expected in this chamber. We could all be sat here sending off emails to all over the world about our feelings.
No.
I'm sorry, that's what you just explained. I'm sorry, let me finish. That's what you just explained, and that's why you've been taken into account by our legal system. There is no way within this chamber of democracy that anybody within this, ahead of a discussion and a motion being granted of what the procedure will be, should you write letters out to anybody, and I would say that to all my comrades here today. That is not the way things are being done, and I hope, Madam Mayor, and the legal responsibility here today makes that quite clear for the future. That is not how democracy works. We work on the outcome of
will be the decision and where this information will go. And if this is a position of electioneering, I deplore it.
Councillor Stanley, you have the right to reply to Councillor
Thank you. No, sorry, you've missed it, but you've misunderstood. And if you could let me finish, I would have explained that that is the letter from our group, and that I would hope that as a result of the debate in the Chamber today, that we could send it, as per the motion, from the whole Council, not just from our group. And it certainly isn't electioneering. I would have hoped that after 3.5 years, you would know me better than that. This is about the people of Wakefield. This is about trying to get what's right and what's best for the people of Wakefield. And I would hope that you will put aside that kind of rhetoric and just, you know, we're trying to do the best here, Betty. It's not anything political, it's trying to do the best for our residents.
Can we now go back to the motion? So we've got the motion with the new amendments in from Councillor Tully. Yeah? And that is what we're going to debate now. So we've got the motion, the original motion with the amendments in now become the substantive motion. So we can now take that to debate. So everybody's got a chance to speak.
Will the vote be put?
Yes.
Sorry.
So the point being made now is that the matter be put to the vote. Is everybody content that that happens?
Yes. Thank you. So now voting on a new substantive motion. All those in favour?
As amended.
Anybody against? Anybody abstains? No, that's fine. That point was the last item on the agenda. Before we leave the room, I just want to remind everybody that it is Organ Donation Week this week, and it's very important that everybody signs up to organ donation. There are some pens in the reception area, somebody puts a load of people that want to go pick them up and share it with their friends and family. It's very important